For some, the virtual world is an escape from reality, and for others, like the corporates up top, it's a way to monetize and control society. But at the end of the day, it's whatever you want it to be, and for that reason video games and the internet have become more and more popular, and with its increasing popularity the idea of the metaverse was born. The metaverse is this completely virtual world that in the future we will all live in, and it's a pretty existential and interesting idea that many types of media like books and movies have tried to tell stories in, and one of those pieces of media are video games themselves. After all, it'd be the most fitting. Today we'll be looking at some of these games that try and show us what the metaverse would look like if it exists in 1,000 years. If we're still alive by then, that is. Virtual Reality 2 is a VR game set inside the metaverse, of course, and it's the third game in the Tender Claws trilogy, which I've talked about before. Now, the trilogy is all about dystopian futures, from a world where AIs are in control to another where beings beyond our comprehension torture us for their entertainment, and it's all set in the same timeline, and Virtual Reality 2 acts as the finale to the series. VR Chat is the game that's the closest thing we have to a real metaverse right now, and in this virtual world where people are free to do as they like, it's pretty chaotic and degenerate, and Virtual Reality 2's interpretation of the metaverse is pretty much a parody of that, with most of the inhabitants from this place being quite odd, from their random ass avatars to their personalities, which range from egomaniacs to mental depression, just like VR Chat. Also, AIs are now completely equal and indistinguishable to us humans in this metaverse, which of course is referencing the slow rise and invasion of AIs in real life. But this is quite nice to see, as before in the series, AIs were in an evil dictatorship-like status, so seeing them now being equal is at least better than before. But oh wait, never mind, because said evil AI dictators are still in power and are doing AI evil dictator things, like shutting down the entire metaverse in order to create a new one to get more money, thus genociding all the AIs and humans that live in the first one. Yippee! Now this is where we meet Gavin, who unlike everyone else in the game, who is pretty much the definition of chronically online, Gavin is a middle-aged American man who lives in a cabin in Maine, and has a strong hatred for this place, and is only in the metaverse in order to try and find someone important to him. The gameplay of the game consists of piloting this mech around that you and Gavin live in, defeating enemies, recruiting new friends, and escaping the metaverse. Now, despite the chaotic madness of the outside world, the mech itself is actually quite cozy, with living quarters and tasks that we have to complete to keep it clean. Moving back to the outside chaotic metaverse, how are the residents coping with their inevitable destruction? Well, some are just living their day-to-day life, so used to having a carefree life that they just act like nothing's happening. Some just keep on hiding, so in shock of what's going on, but most of them just accept their death under all this pressure. So what's the point? This is a video essay, there has to be some kind of message you're extracting from the game. Well, that's simply connections. Doesn't matter if you're a human or an AI, it's always connections that get you through tough times like the destruction of your reality. Friends, faith, whatever, just hold on to that and you'll get through these hard times. I bring this up mostly because I want to establish how important social connections are to the idea of the metaverse. It's what most people play for, playing with friends and meeting new ones. It's easily the best part about most social online apps, but of course everything has a dark side. Another theme of the game is immortality. Since it's in the metaverse where no one has any physical bodies, everyone's immortal, which kind of sucks. Because with immortality, if you're immortal, you can just do everything with no worry of death. Once you've mastered every hobby and done every activity, what else is there to do? You just keep on living for eternity and forever and ever, and there's just nothing you can do but just keep living. You can try to do things over and over again, but then that will start to degrade your soul and make you go insane. It kind of sucks. These two ideas is what virtual reality 2 teaches us in the end, as we get given a message about connections as we go to live in the real world in an immortal body, which is all fine and well, but things only get interesting when we look at it from another perspective, that being the perspective of another game, which is where we move on to the second game of the video, Boneworks. Boneworks is yet another VR game set inside the metaverse, and unlike virtual reality 2's metaverse, which took place during the end times of that world, Boneworks' metaverse takes place before it even opens, when it's still under construction, and the only inhabitants of the place are the mindless AI workers. In the game, we play as Arthur Ford, who's basically the janitor for the metaverse, but is secretly a spy working for a company called Monogon, and he's in the search for the truth for immortality. Yep, this isn't gonna end well. The gameplay is essentially that of a sandbox, as you're dropped into one of the game's variety of levels with a bunch of enemies, weapons and props, and the goal is to just muck about, finding creative ways to murder the enemies and unique ways to navigate the levels to the end, and it's all insanely fun, so much so that it's probably my favourite game of all time. Yep, straight up, that was a bit unexpected, but Boneworks is my #1 game that I've played of all time. Yay. Easily the area that represents my love for the game the most is the tower, the place that has the most information about immortality within it, and at the base of the tower there are a bunch of zombies fending off against the antivirus of the metaverse, as you have to take on both sides in a gritty battle to the top of the tower, with a bunch of different areas, weapons, etc, and it's all just pretty fun, pretty cool, and yeah, after many trials you make it to the void. This mysterious place that is referenced all throughout this game, and even in the creator's other games, where it's said dangerous entities and endless power lurk down there. This whole metaverse place is built on top of the void, and you can see the layers and layers of security that whoever built this place has done to secure the void and make sure no one gets inside it. But probably more importantly, nothing gets out. With every move you make getting closer to the void, the more unorganised and messy the world gets, as employees aren't allowed this far back. Your final challenge within the void in order to reach immortality is to climb this massive ladder, which usually would be fine in any other game, if not a bit boring, but there's one small problem: this is a VR game, so you have to use your actual hands to climb up the ladder to the point where it's pretty much an actual workout in order to beat the game. Who knew a simple ladder could be a final boss? The ending cutscene of the game is Ford getting killed off in real life, but that doesn't matter because he's uploaded his mind into the simulation and he's now immortal. But as we said, immortality isn't as it's cracked up to be, and this is addressed via the void entities. The void entities are these lanky, glitching, in pain looking beings that just watch us from afar and look like they're trying to make us turn away. Now, the lore of the game is very vague, but one of the theories for these guys is that they're Ford from the future trying to warn us not to become immortal and to enter the void because of how much pain it's causing them, for all the reasons we stated earlier for why becoming immortal is pretty bad. We know that the void and all the entities that come with it have some major time manipulating powers, which is what has made the timeline so hard to figure out, so something like this wouldn't be too much of a stretch. Anyways, Ford is pretty much the main villain. Not just does he cause chaos with his descent into the void, as he kills everything in his path, but he also cuts off all his mutuals and friends in the process to become immortal, which is what virtual reality said not to do in the end. In the game Bonelab, which is essentially the closest thing we have to a sequel for Boneworks, we get to feel the after effects of Ford's actions and all the problems and stuff that he's caused, despite him never being physically present, well, outside of these clones of himself that he's left behind, who we can beat up. So yes, this is the end of the video, and I'm just going to end it up with some Killing Ford compilation. Yay, that will bring things full circle.